Welcome back to Female Voices, Life and Loss. I'm LaWayna,
And I'm Teresa.
and we are on our second part of our series on the hidden layers of grief. And so today we're going to be talking about grieving someone who hurt you. And when I
Mm.
think about that, I feel like Teresa had me lead because she knew that I had a lot of content on this topic.
Hmm.
Uh,
Maybe that was the reason.
but today we're talking about something complicated. So, something many women experience, but rarely say out loud. And I don't know if it's just women who say this because I feel like men do this too, at times, I should say. Why do we miss someone who hurt us?
Hmm.
And then with that thought, then why does leaving feel like a loss too? So even though this person hurt us, they mistreat us, we still miss them, and leaving feels like, ouch, my heart.
Mhm.
So I think we're grieving the fantasy is where I would go with that. And the fantasy
Yes.
is of the relationship that me and this person were going to be or whatever. I can think of just grieving a person, just meaning my first divorce. Why did I
Yeah.
miss him? I still missed him, because I was with him for 6 years. That's why you still miss him. And it would be very easy for me right after I got divorced to fall back in the loop of this is my person, this is my husband, it was very, very hard to get over
Mhm.
that. And I am going off script, right? So thinking
Whatever.
about my first,
Whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
that first divorce, that relationship wasn't healthy, but walking away, it did not feel like freedom when I first did. It didn't. It was just like, it felt like, oh, I'm tearing up my family. Oh, is my son going to forgive me later? It felt like losing a version of myself
Mhm.
and thinking of myself as a woman of color, of a woman of a certain age. I was thinking, man, am I going to be a statistic too? My
Mhm.
kids not going to have dad in the home. Like my mind went through all kind of things when I left that relationship. So just losing hope of a solid foundation for my son because that's what I was hoping for. But I still missed him for a season and it still hurt for a season. And so those things may be kind of confusing for people when you're grieving things like that. I don't know, Teresa, tell me, what does this sound like to you? What I'm talking about?
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, especially with like divorce and those sorts of things. And I share that my sister, when she separated from her husband,
Mhm.
and was going to go through a divorce, by just being with her and
Yeah.
her being in such pain, that she loved him dearly. And I
Yeah.
just remember vividly the conversation and saying, you will always love him in some way in your heart. But even though there's that love, it's you're just not good together. And there needs to be the divorce. And so I think just to speak to that is like there's still love. There were still dreams, desires, things that you anticipated that you wanted, and especially in your case
Mhm.
with the child. And it's like now you're making a huge decision in your child's life as well. So there's that second piece of that.
Yeah, you're not grieving the person, but you're grieving the potential. You're grieving the
Yeah.
dream. You're grieving the future that we thought we would have
Mhm.
together. And then, like you
Mhm.
said, with the added piece of my child being, affected, it was hard I
Mhm.
know this isn't healthy. I'm grieving it, but man, it was just still so hard. So I do believe that level of grief affected my second marriage and my
Mhm.
second marriage of having a child in my second marriage. Because that first divorce, I knew I hurt Gabe in some sort of way. Gabe's my oldest. And so when I had Joshua, when me and my husband ran into issues in on my second marriage, I wasn't as quick to pivot because I know how they left a scar on Gabe. So I was
Mhm.
like, "Okay." I was very, very, exploratory. "Let's go to therapy. Let's communicate. Let's join a support group. What can we
Mhm.
do to work on this marriage?" Because I saw the devastation with my oldest, and I didn't want that for Gabe a second time,
Sure.
and
Mhm.
for Joshua, but also for Riley and Charlie. I did not want my bonus kids, my biological kids, to go
Mhm.
through the devastation of a divorce, you know? So I dug my heels in a little bit harder
Mhm.
trying to figure things out.
Mhm.
Just speaking from my own lived experience, to grieve something that doesn't happen, it doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. You know, I just
Mhm.
wanna say that.
And I think sometimes there's confusion, um, really from that, and then that confusion really turns into shame.
Yeah.
Shame about should I stay? Um, Missing them. Shame about feeling relief
Uh,
once you leave. But grief does not validate that the harm that you've
mhm,
experienced. And I think you can miss someone for
uh,
sure and
yeah.
still protect yourself. I've worked, like I said, like even with my sister, but I work with women who say things like, I don't even miss him. I think that takes time.
Uh-huh, mhm,
And I missed who I was trying to be with them. The
uh,
identity of that grief runs deep, and there's a
yeah,
huge identity shift
mhm,
when you have someone harming you in a way, whether it's physical, mental, verbally, whatever that is, when there's that hurtfulness, and to
um,
recognize that hurtfulness.
yeah, and it takes strength too.
Yeah.
I do wanna say this to men and women. If you're leaving a relationship, a situation that, is not positive for whatever reason, it takes strength to turn and leave. That
Mhm.
takes a huge strength. But when we're talking about those relationships and we're talking about attachments really, right? So when we
Mhm.
talk about, and for me, oh gosh, mine is the worst, meaning if I feel safety when I'm familiar with somebody. And so when I feel familiar with somebody, it's because they are giving off energy like my mother and my father. So that familiarity is really, for me, should be my first red flag. 'Cause I love
Mm.
my mom, love my dad, but they're kinda self-focused. They're the babies of the family, and there's something to be said about birth
Mm.
order too when you're dating, and I'm the oldest of the family. So, so when I meet men who are confident, arrogant, narcissists, those are the negative words. But what you see is confidence. You see somebody who can hold a room, who can captivate a room, who makes everybody feel good, very easy to talk to. I love educated men. That's my thing. I love educated men. So if they can teach me something, when they got the deep voice like Gabe Scott father has, I'm like, ooh, 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 they're over
Mm.
6 foot. Ooh, 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 ooh. So it's like, LaWayna, stop, girl. Stop. That's
Ah,
your red flag.
ah.
This is not gonna end well for you.
Mm,
So I had to teach
mm,
myself to, slow down and not confuse this familiar feeling
mhm,
with this person is safe and they actually see me fully. No, they don't. They don't. They
mm,
don't. They want to be seen. They're on the pedestal. But that's
mhm,
where I get kind of stuck sometimes. So I was talking about trauma bonding. There's something about trauma bonding. It happens when you have intense emotional highs and lows that create that attachment. So when I'm meeting this person, I'm having intense highs. Oh, they're my person. They're so smart. They're teaching me this. Oh, I'm loving this conversation. But then I experience lows when my needs are not validated. They don't know my love
mhm,
language. They don't give me any care or consideration in my love language. So then I have the low attachment. Like, but then they might throw me
mhm.
out some breadcrumbs, and I'm like, oh, are we back again? We're back on the cycle of high. Oh, this is really
Ah.
great. No, no, none of this is great. So it just hijacks my nervous system, and it
Mhm.
feels very, very confusing.
And just, yeah, reiterating really that confusion with that, with your nervous system, with whether to go, whether to stay, whether to feel relief, whether to validate that this is hard, and there's grief within that, and even if you're missing that person, we just need to pay close attention to what those feelings are and to make sure that um, that we're very much in tune to what is being felt,
Mhm.
and not be distracted by. I think a lot of times, like, at least with my sister, when I talked about her, it's a cycle,
Mhm.
especially if
Oh,
there's verbal, mental, physical abuse, because we're talking about being hurt by someone, it's a cycle that they go
mhm.
through, and they'll just be. I think you kind of were talking about that, like that forgiveness, and they're doing everything to bring you back in and say they're sorry, and then that hurt comes again, and it's just this vicious little. I shouldn't say little. It's a vicious
Not little. No, like, it's not just
cycle that
yes.
just
Hard.
continues, and so it's really important to get out and away from that.
When you're thinking about, that cycle, and for me, it was just looking at, like, the realization, looking what's real. Okay,
Mhm.
LaWayna, and I'm speaking of my ex-husband at this moment. If he really cared about me and my son, he would've offered to watch him while I went to grad school 1 night a week.
Mm.
He said no. He wanted to make me pay divorce. He's mad at me. He wants to make me pay, but
Yeah.
he didn't understand he was making our son pay. He wasn't making me pay. He was making his son feel
Mm.
forgotten. So it would be things like that, like I needed him to adjust his schedule on the co-parenting, and he never would. And then it would be like for 4 years, he did not get our son on the weekends ever for 4 years. And I went to grad school, but he wasn't helping. I figured it out. I got done in a year. And when I got done with grad school,
Congrats.
I said, now I'm about to clean house, But it was just like, I'm looking at what is he showing me? He hasn't shown me one thing that says that he
Mm.
is missing us, wants to work, wants our, relationship to be healthier. I didn't see one instance of that. But when my life started to change and my career took off, and I was able to do different
Mm.
things, then he was like, "Oh, we could be back to, this could be great." After I've already
Of
done the
course,
hard work, you know?
of course.
It's like I could be at home with my wife. I was like, "You're at home with your girlfriend who you've been living with for 8 years. I think you're good. I think
Mm.
you're good."
Mhm.
But it's just I had to stop and just start looking what's real, not something I felt, not something I made up. What's real
Mhm.
is I asked, "Could you do A, B, and C?" And you said no. I asked you again, you said no. I asked you another time, you said no. Okay, this is not a person who wants me in any sort of capacity or values me or my son. And my son's
Mhm.
pretty amazing. Gabe Scott's amazing.
Yeah. So what was kind of the turning point for you?
The turning, I think I thought, and I'm naive, and I'll say this, I don't know that I know some women that I've spoke to felt this way too. So,
Mhm.
you think when we get divorced legally, he'll see it. He'll see my value. He'll see what I was doing. He'll
Mhm.
be a better parent because maybe we couldn't be good together, but he could be a better parent for him because
Yeah.
we're doing this divorce. And that is not what happened. And so just watching how he moved right after we got divorced, how he talked to me, which he never, now let me be clear, he never did not want to, he never wanted a divorce. He never did. He just wanted me to be better and, whatever. So,
Mhm.
but the turning point, let me get back to your original question. Turning point was me just watching him day in, day out. Like he still did not show up for our son. And that's what he was
Mhm.
doing inside the marriage too. I was carrying it all. And I was just like, I'd rather just carry it by myself and I don't have to do this feedback with this other adult. Like, what bills are
Mhm.
we going to pay? What bills does
Mhm.
he not want to pay? I don't have to have
Mhm.
any of those conversations. I could just handle my own affairs. But I really did think that I was doing better at the time for myself and for my son because I just kept
Mhm.
watching it. He wasn't showing me anything better. Now, let me say this. If he would have co-parent well with me, we would have gotten back together because that was
Mhm.
something that would have worked for my son. That would have been best for my son to have both his parents. And I
Mhm.
know for a fact, I am a mama bear. I will do anything for my sons. So I would have definitely, if I would have saw him co-parent with me, working together with me, we would have definitely got back together. But
Mhm.
he said in his mind, you divorce me, I'm gonna make you suffer and I'm not gonna help you do anything. So,
Mhm.
like I said, for those 4 years, he kept him every Monday and Tuesday for 4 years. And I
Mhm.
was just like,
Mhm.
this dude. But turning point, turning point, turning point
So really, like,
was, yeah, my son.
since we talk about grief, so speak to what were you grieving? Or were you ever grieving? Were you hurt so bad that there wasn't grief there? But I think you kind of already alluded to
I
that
was.
there was because you had this thought, this desire,
Yeah,
this
I still
dream.
miss him.
Yeah.
And he used to like, my ex-husband, I was used to be on a pedestal, like, and
Mm,
it probably took me a couple of years to realize when the shift changed,
mhm,
because I was his moon and stars, like, I could do no wrong, but on the other side, after we got married and had our son, for him, whatever, I changed. I was 12 years younger than him. So
mhm,
I think he thought I could mold her, I could train her, she's gonna be my
mm,
little stepper wife or whatever. And my
mhm.
godfather was like, that ain't her. He said it the
Yeah.
day before our wedding, like, hey, that ain't her. If you think that she's gonna do all that, she talks
Mhm,
back and got attitude. Like, dude, that's not her. But
mm,
he's like, I love her. She's everything. But just on the other side of getting married and have my son, our relationship just changed, drastically. So I went from moon and stars to being, everything to like, it's whatever, it's just
mhm,
Wayna or whatever.
mhm.
Unless we're in public, because if we're in public, we're the model family. I love my wife dirty raw
Mm,
in public. But at home, that was not the treatment. It was
okay.
like, I'm expected to serve him and be grateful that
Mm,
he has married me. So me and my son really, really were in positions of servitude. Like he thought we should serve
mhm,
him. He's the king or whatever. And don't get me wrong,
mhm.
nothing's wrong with taking care of your man, long as your man is taking care of you. Nothing wrong with
Sure.
that. I love love. But this was different and it wasn't the same as
Yeah.
when we were dating and things like that before we got married.
Yeah. So as you were going through that, did you ever think before the divorce or the separation was final, maybe it wasn't that bad?
I
Maybe
did.
you were overreacting, or maybe you should try again. I mean, I would assume that those thoughts are like
We did. We
all
were
back and forth.
separate. Yeah, we were separated for maybe 6 months or something, and then we
Mhm.
got back together, but it did not last,
Okay.
and it actually ended in a fight, a physical fight. It was, and he's
Mm,
not, but it was still physical in general. But I did, and he did not treat my son. I'm a
yeah.
mama bear,
That's
so
the hardest.
Gabe
That's the
Gabe
hardest.
was, like, 2, maybe turning 3, and we had
Mhm.
moved back in together and all that,
Mhm.
and my husband walked in the house, and he couldn't reach me all day, so he assumed I was with a gentleman that I had dated when we broke whatever, when we weren't together.
Mhm.
So he just
Mhm.
assumed I was with that guy, and so when he
Okay.
came in the home, even though I was at church, ironically, but when he came
Mhm.
home, he gave, hey, dad," and he
Mhm.
walked past him, and he didn't speak to him. And so Gabe, my
Mm.
boys have always been advanced. They're super smart, super, like he's 3, 2.5, 3, but he talked like he was 6. So he comes up
Mhm.
to me, he says, a little toddler voice, "Ma, daddy walked past me. I speak. He didn't say nothing to me." He said, "Mom,
Mm.
daddy didn't speak to me."
Mm.
And I'm like, "Why would you do that?" Because he looks identical to his father. Neither one of my boys look like,
Yeah.
but I was like, "You're not gonna be in this house and not speak to him."
Yeah.
'Cause you're mad at me? He didn't deserve that. And I was just like, "You gotta leave, cause I can't have that, I can't have that. I can't have you walking past him, not speaking to him, cause 'cause you're mad at me, like, that one has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the other." So that was the second turning point. The first turning point when I left is because Gabe tried to defend me when we were together, cause he was
Mm.
yelling in my ear so loud that he almost bust my eardrums. And while he was yelling, I ain't gonna lie, my family, they're spicy. They're independent women. So in my mind, I'm seeing red. Like I'm going to bust him in the head. This is not therapeutic. Let me say all of that. None of this is therapeutic. Okay? Just want to make sure I put that in there. If you're ever in danger, call people. But my family were made. The women in my family are made a little different. We're like, I got this, But my son jumped in front of me, and he was 2 years old at that time. And he
Mhm.
started yelling at his dad. He's like, you don't talk to my mom like that. And I said, I gotta go. I said, my 2 year
Mhm.
old's he's trying to save
Mhm.
me. That's
Mhm.
not his role. And I don't want him at 2 thinking he got to save his mom. I was like, I gotta go. Let's go. And I left. But I say all that to say, I did miss my husband. I did think he loved me at one point.
Mhm.
The love
Mhm.
changed. Maybe he felt he could get better, do better, whatever.
Mhm.
We did not grow together, as, I had thought we were, but I still missed him, but the reason that I wasn't with him was directly because of how he treated my son.
Mm.
He loved him when he was a baby, but it's like when he started walking and talking, he did not enjoy anything past the baby stage. So
Yeah.
marriages or not, it wasn't 100% his fault,
Mhm.
100% my fault. We both have fault in that. And so through my years of therapy, thank you, Lord, I was able to talk to my ex-husband and apologize for my part in that marriage because I
Mhm.
wasn't clean, you know? I had my own part,
Mhm.
and I was immature in some ways too, that I wish we woulda had a seasoned couple walk through that with us. Somebody
Mhm.
like Teresa and her husband
Mhm.
of 46, 47 years. But just when you have someone that has that kinda longevity, they can tell you it's not gonna always be this hard. They
Yeah.
can tell you, "Hey, give her a little space today. Let's leave. Let things cool down. Let's get back and let's talk about it." Because he's my ex-husband's he's a smart person. He's a hardworking man just like my current husband. So I think a lot of those things could have been worked through if ego, self-focus could have been on the shelf and both of us come to the table and what's best for the kids. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, took a turn. I know we
Yeah.
were on.
No. Hey, that's okay. So we can bring that back a little bit, I guess, just to talk about grieving someone who hurt you.
Mhm.
Um, and just talking if there's anything else that you want to say about that as far as really grieving someone that hurt you. And I will just say that, that it is hard. You can miss someone and grieve someone and still protect yourself.
Yes, and I did both because I did not go back.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So I grieved the person that I had to see every 2 weeks and
Mhm.
realized that
Mhm.
he's not my ally.
Mhm.
He doesn't want the best for me. He doesn't want the
Mhm.
best for my son if that means he has to take a loss, so I was just, like, arming my boundaries up and my standards
Yeah.
for the next person that
Yeah.
comes in, yeah. But
Yeah.
you can love someone and not like Teresa said, they're not good for you, you're not good for them,
Mhm. Mhm.
'cause we don't agree on what the goal is, or
Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
priorities, you know?
And in your situation, there is a child, and so I think that what I'm hearing you say is that was a huge piece of it. Like with
Mhm,
my sister, there were no children,
mhm.
and so I'm sure that was different than what you experienced.
Yeah.
More of a that was a layer within that. That it was like, okay, we cannot. And your son defending you, I mean, that was probably like, okay, I'm out. This
Yeah,
this this is the last piece.
yeah, he can't feel like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
You can't. And
yeah.
so, like you said, taking care of yourself, really think about what that means, because I think we should do a part 2, and we are gonna do a part 2 to this, and the part 2 to this is talking about forgiving someone who caused the death, of your loved one. And so that is a very different conversation, but I
Mhm.
think it would resonate and need eyes upon for I don't know that many people that deal with this. I met some people who have lost their kids to gun violence and things like that.
Mhm.
So this may be something that resonates with them and help them kind of process what that looks like and
Mhm.
forgiving someone who hurt you to the max, with
Mhm.
taking a life of a loved one. It's just
Yeah.
a completely different kind of pain.
So, I just will say that if this conversation resonated, share it with someone who might need to hear it. They need to hear that they're not alone. And
Mhm.
as
Yeah,
before, remember grief isn't something to get over. It's
yeah,
something you learn to carry differently. And we're honored every week. And any time that you reach out to us, we're honored to walk alongside of you And so until next time, be gentle with your heart.
If this conversation resonated, please share with someone. Remember to like, follow, and share our page if any of this resonated with you. Inbox us. We love to hear from you. We love all comments, even if they're negative. Please help us grow. So, uh, thank you for listening. I am Wayna.
And I'm Teresa.
Yep, Reiniger. And this is Female Voices Life and Loss. Join us next Thursday as we continue this series of the hidden layers of grief.